Hi everyone, it's Andrew and it is time to get stuck into my WPL kit. Most notably the C44 KM. So this is the pickup version of the FJ45. You see a little picture there with the wooden slats and the metal upgraded components being a KM series. That's what it comes with. So I've got the bodywork downstairs. That's been washed and is currently drying on the radiator. So I've got all this stuff is downstairs still wet, except for the wood, obviously. So here we go. So we're going to do the chassis first, then the bodywork is going to get painted during today and tomorrow, and bit by bit. But let's crack on. So I'm not. Oh, by the way, I should probably tell you, I'm not going to do this bolt by bolt, step by step, because I find them quite. I don't know. You guys don't need to see how this goes together. You just need to know what goes wrong or what areas to watch out for, I guess. That's all I'm ever interested in build videos. Okay, so I will stop at a convenient point and let you know what I've come to. Okay, so we have primed the body, the royal we, obviously, I mean me. So we've got the doors, the roof, the main kind of chassis. I've put the dash and the engine battery thing in, sprayed up at the same time. Bonnet's there. We've got the back screen for the cab. We've got the door insides, the tub with the seats on, back windscreen that is, and over here we've got the bed with the sides quickly screwed on and the mud guards. The bumpers are over there. I've done them with a slightly different primer because they're very flexible. So didn't want to use my traditional Halfords primer. I'm not sure how flexible that is. So yeah, so far so good. Upstairs, all I've done is made the shocks, so no big deal there. But now I'm going to have some lunch and get on with the chassis. Right, everyone. So let me update you on the shock situation. They are odd little items. There are no leaf springs in this. I think I mentioned that there were leaves before, but there aren't. So it's purely shock setup, this one. And they are odd shocks. They are, first of all, they are dry. So there's basically just a spring here. It looks like a bit of a dual rate thing, doesn't it? With the you've got the central shaft magnetized by my screwdriver, and you've got the eye on the end, and you've got this kind of strange looking cap. Sorry, I'm looking through the phone at the same time. Okay, so they build up to, and obviously the shock body there. Yeah, so they build up to be this thing here. It's pretty straightforward. You screw the eye on the end of the piston, and because it's threaded, it's got a, there you go, you see it's got a little crosshead on the top. So you pop that into your tube like so, stick your screwdriver in that end, hold the eye on the other end, and you end up with this stuck on the end. You then put the spring in on top of the bolt head. So the spring just goes straight in there, and you squeeze the little plastic cap clip thing on, and that kind of butts up against the top of the spring. Now, the spring is quite hard. It's quite densely packed, and it's gone is what that spring is somewhere. That was a bit unplanned. Anyhow, just as well I've made one earlier, isn't it? So here is one made up per the instructions. Now, my problem with this is, because there's no oil, there's no damping on the rebound. It's just, the absorption rate seems okay. The spring rate seems fine. I don't see there being a big problem with absorbing. I think the problem comes is when it rebounds, when it bounces back. Ocha! That is massively strong and completely undamped. It will, I don't know where this is going to go, but let's see. Hey, into the screw box. Wicked, there it is. All right. So this would undoubtedly cause a bit of bobbliness. So it's not, the bobble isn't so much that the shocks are really hard. It's that they are kicking back. Once they're compressed up under the truck, they then push back really hard and fire the truck upwards, basically. Anyway, the other problem with this is that the piston in the housing is like, it's like a wizard's sleeve in there. Look at that. That's kind of really slack. It just kind of wobbles around. That's why you can't put oil in them, because it'll just leak straight out. There's a gap you could, look at that. You know what I mean? So anyway, it's not a precision kit, is it? But now this has a much less feisty spring in it. It also, and more importantly, I think, or at least as important, it has my self-made little damper. So that will then go through into there, and it won't go in right now, but when I trim it, it'll go in, and there'll be enough friction and resistance in there to calm things down a little bit. So I'll just trim away at it until it slides in there with a modicum of force, because there's no point in it rattling around either. And the result is something like this. So I can compress it, and it fires out again. Of course it will. It's not. It hasn't got that kind of. I can't do that. I can't oil it. I can't put any oil in there as resistance. It is literally just friction and a much weaker spring. But it isn't going to. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't fire the thing up into the air. It doesn't really have the power. Look, see, it doesn't have the power to fire itself into orbit. A little bit, if I get it right. But compared to this one, which is much more feisty, it's basically as much of an improvement as I can make. And with it being a softer spring, it should have a fair bit more sag. I hope it doesn't have too much. Here we are. I know that in reality the FJs, I don't think they really had a huge amount of flex and a huge amount of travel on them, so it might be quite realistic. But I mean, I can feel it's so much softer and so much less wanting to go into orbit. It wants to hop around on the spring, but yeah, it's not. How long it took to land, you can count how long it took to land. I must have got a good 2 foot off that one, and it's I'll have to rummage around for that in a minute. It's gone down here somewhere. Feisty little monkey it is. Right, so anyway, that's the shock update. So that's what I'm going to be doing, putting these much weaker springs in instead of wherever the stock fancy one there is. I mean, you can just tell. I mean, that's like that's going to be much softer, isn't it? Wicked. More and on. Okay, build update. The chassis step is done. Not entirely completely. You'll notice that there is no second servo in there. Here it is. As I said before, I'm not entirely convinced I'm going to end up running this gearbox and motor anyway, because it's plastic geared. I'll just leave the gear shift as it is and test run it and see, and then hopefully swap the motor out anyhow. But the rest of it was okay. I'm not sure whether I've got that brace upside down or not. I just assumed that the logoed side would be the visible side under the truck. The bed assembly sits in that hole or that hole, we'll see, and a screw goes in from the other side. So we'll see, that might have to be reversed. The shocks, still a little bit of a drama. Well, not drama, but just a little bit of a work. As I said, they don't really sit, they don't mount to a tower. There's no shock hoop here or, securing end at this point. They are just screwed through the chassis rails into the shock body. And you really should have done that before you put this in. I did it back to front. So I had to remove these screws again, slide this servo tray out the way and do it. It's awkward because once you've got one in, you can't really get to the other one. So probably more sensible to have done them before you even assemble before you even put the rails together. I mean, it doesn't really say what order to do things. It just says, that's all the stuff you need to do. What I did do, as you can maybe just tell on the shock mounts, where's focus? There it is. Can you see the white spaces? That's a better shot for you. There you go. There's a white spacer there. There's 4 of them, obviously one on each shock, because the shock is on a peg that sits in the chassis hole like this one. and then you screw through, as you can see over there. You screw through, but the peg is longer. Is longer than the chassis rail is wide, so you screw the screw in and the whole shock still just rattles and rotates and wobbles from side to side. So I've found some white plastic spacers in the toolbox, and in there, in my spares box I should say, and I just had to widen them up slightly, so I've had to ream them out a little bit just to widen them, and slid them over the shock peg, so it has made a much more secure fit. They rotate, but they don't wobble side to side. Okay, there's no sideways movement. So I feel a little bit happier with those anyway. In terms of whether they are stiff enough, well, it's hard to see with this motor on, because the motor, there isn't a lot of clearance on the motor, as you can see. But at the moment, the chassis is not overwhelming. The feeble shock springs I've installed. How long that'll last, I don't know, but we'll see. So that's where that is. I've done the front axle, just finished that a few minutes ago, and again it's not too bad. I don't have any Loctite at the moment, so I'm going to have to probably go back and Loctite these screws in, because they just bite through into there. Normally these collars, I would expect the collar to go the other way up, but there's no room, and it does say in the instructions to do it this way, with the lip on the outside, leaving the C hub to just the steering hub here to just rotate on the inside plane of the C hub here. Binding or anything, a little bit. I've had to just loosen these 4 pinch screws off that goes all the way through front and back covers. Hold it like this and spin it. There you go. That's not rotating in my hand. So it does. I can just feel a little bit of notchiness, but I might have to shim it. I'm going to have to be a little bit careful to make sure that I keep any slop out of it, because as soon as you put a bit of slop in, it binds up quite heavily. So that'll be a bit of a thing.